Hello, everyone, and welcome to an episode of Lodgecast. It officially has a name. I've chosen a name for this lovely podcast, and I am joined by a new permanent member of the group, the crew, another member of the Lodge. He is my brother from Law Crimes. He has his own amazing channel too. It is Andy the Remembrancer. I'm sure everyone knows. Yeah, so Andy is also... much like me, we have read much of the Horus Heresy series. In fact, pretty much all of it. We will both be guiding you through this amazing series. And again, if you haven't listened to any episodes or if you haven't caught on so far, basically, we know you're not going to read the Horus Heresy, so we'll read it for you. And we will explain what happens in every book. And again, if you're doing something, if you're painting, if you're listening along, got snacks and drinks, whatever you want, sit back and enjoy, because we're going to get you sped up on all the Horus Heresy lore, and without and we'll cut all the chaff out, we'll cut all the boring bits out, and we'll give you all the good stuff. Andy, obviously, will be Mr. Amazing Remembrancer here, who literally, we talk about remembrances a lot in this series as well. Andy's going to be guiding us through what is perhaps, is this one of your favorite books in the series?
It's one of them, yeah. It's definitely up there.
I think so we've got Fulgrim after this one next, and then we have a bit of a shake-up, I think, maybe to the order. We'll see what we do. But today we'll be going through what is the fourth book in the Horus Heresy series. So if you read the previous three, there's some timey-wimey jump bits here, but it will...
Here and there.
It does then follow on, and it takes over from what is Galaxy in Flames. And well, I'll let Andy go straight on into it, because this is I love this book, so let's go through the juicy lore.
Well, but before I do get into it, I just want to give a shout out to James Swallow, who wrote this book. A lot of people give a lot of credit to some great writers for Black Library, like Aaron Dembski-Bowden, Graham McNeil, Dan Abnett. I think for some reason James is overlooked or sometimes underappreciated, and this book particularly is like one of the first Horus Heresy books. He had a lot of world building to do with the scraps of information that the writing team had about the established universe before they started expanding it. And there's so many characters in this book. There's so many different factions of Space Marines and civilians and stuff. So I just want to say that one of the reasons I quite like this book is there's a lot of stuff going on, but also there's lots of perspectives and lots of character moments and lots of interactions, which is one of the reasons I really like James's work. And future books that he does in the series also have good carry-ons of remember these characters that I wrote back in the day? Well, now they're doing this or that. He does a lot of the Garrow stuff. And without further ado, so this is a Death Guard heavy book, because its perspective is primarily through the eyes of Nathaniel Garrow. Now, who is Nathaniel Garrow? Nathaniel Garrow is the battle captain of the 7th Great Company of the Death Guard Legion, a unique title inherited from a hero of unknown name during the Wars of Unification, who was given the title personally by the Emperor. And Garrow is an interesting POV character because he is a bit of a holdover from the old ways and traditions. And as a Terran Astarte, he's a man born on Earth, essentially. There is tension between him and his brethren who were born on Barbarus, which is there is a little aside in the book where it's Mortarion was born on Terra, so technically he's a Terran. It's no, he grew up on Barbarus. But that's where Mortarion, the Primarch of the Death Guard, is from. So the book begins with the Death Guard Legion on the way to combat a Xenos species called the Yorgal. And we're introduced to a bunch of different characters. For example, Caleb Aaron, who is one of my favorite characters in the Horus Heresy, who is a failed Death Guard aspirant who went through the trials to become a Space Marine, got to the trial of Poison Fawns, I believe it is, and gave up. And so instead of dying like most aspirants do, Nathaniel Garrow basically saved his life and said, okay, I'm invoking my right as a captain to have him serve as my house Carl, which is, again, an old tradition that most of the Death Guard don't use anymore because they don't like tradition, where he basically looks after his Garrow's weapons, his armor, and basically is like a like a butler or a servant, or he's
like a squire, but
he's like
not
a person who helps.
becoming the
A
knight.
squire, yeah, that's the best way of putting it. Yeah, he's a squire.
On a
and
on a slight side note, just for the slight bit of background lore, Barbarous, the planet, is basically a toxic dump for most people. So it has its own unique culture of people who basically the whole thing is like we survived poisons and stuff. So it's very different from Garrow's upbringing.
We are descended from farmers on a poisonous world run by necromancers who bullied my ancestors with dead people. Like, cool, grim, not fun.
They're not very pretty people.
No, very gaunt, very emaciated. There's even a bit in the book about how Garrow isn't as pale as his Barbarian brethren because they all just look so not emaciated because they are Space Marines, but it's like you can tell the difference between a Terran and a Barbarian because one's ghost pale. Yeah, and then Terrans are like, yeah, I've got the equivalent of a tan. It's like, but in comparison, yeah. But the Death Guard at this point in the book is going for a time of much change. Ever since War Master Horus Lupercal was appointed as the new leader of the Great Crusade, and the Emperor basically bowed out from the Great Crusade and went back to Holy Terror, lots been going on, and the Death Guard especially is going through a constant shift of the Terran Astartes die out, the Barbarians are recruited into the Legion, and now practically Garrow is one of the last captains who's Terran. Most of them are Barbarian, and they don't really get along because, generally speaking, the Death Guard see themselves as true Death Guard if they were from Barbarous, because even the name of their legion is tied to the people who fought for freedom against the tyranny of the necromancers. And there are some other characters introduced. For example, we have Ulis Temeter, who is also a Terran-born Death Guard, and he's captain of the 4th Company. We have Anders Hakor, who is the veteran sergeant of Garrow's squad, and he's also he's an interesting character because he doesn't really get like much not screen time, but like much page time, I guess, in the book. But he's also like quite kind to Caleb, who a lot of the Death Guard bully because he's like a failed aspirant. And we slowly get to know different commanders of the Legion. For example, Ignatius Grilgor, the commander, not captain, commander of the 2nd Company, who also has an inherited title like Garrow, hates Garrow's guts, despises him.
He's a bastard. He's such a bastard.
He hates Garrow because he hates tradition. He hates how he's got this, quote, weakling who looks after his stuff. And in Grilgor's eyes, the Death Guard is for Barbarians, not for Terrans. It can't come soon enough when they're all gone and we can be a proper legion of proper Barbarians. A proper legion for proper legionaries, says Ignatius Grilgor. And we also are briefly introduced to Callus Typhon, the 1st captain, who, as the most senior officer under Mortarion, again, a giant bastard, but we don't really see much of that yet. This book, he's more working in the shadows. He is joined to the hip with Grilgor in not liking Garrow, but he's a bit more subtle about it. And essentially, the Death Guard are going to go fight the Yorgul. We also see a detachment of Sisters of Silence dispatched by Malkador the Witcher, Malkador the Sigillite, to help them in their campaign because they're going to need witch seekers for some reason. Hal, what am a Sister of Silence?
Interestingly enough, this is an all-female order from... I mean, we haven't really seen this much in the series yet, I don't think, but... No. The Witch Seekers they are an all-female order, and they are essentially what are nulls or blanks in the Warhammer verse. Essentially, there's a bit more to it, but they have an aura around them that sort of nullifies the warp / psychic, anything like that. They are often sent to, again, literally hunt witches and deal with psychers and other dangerous xenos or that kind. And they are interesting. They have a vow of silence, where there's literally why they're called the Sisters of Silence. They basically only communicate in battle cant. So, no, that's Astartes. They're their own version of thought mark. They have their own version of like sign language, where certain people do eventually like catch on to what they are saying, but they do not speak. It is a vow they take. It's not like they have their tongues ripped out or anything. But so some of the younger ones haven't taken the vow yet, and they speak for the older ones. But they are essentially, again, they are directly under the Emperor's and Malcador's control. And we will explain a bit about Malcador later, to be fair. But as in, they are essentially there to help combat Xenos with their amazing aura powers, and they are very mysterious, though. Very mysterious.
Unfortunately, they are very bad. They are badly mistreated in universe after the Horus Heresy and by Black Library because they don't get much lore. But I love them. They're great. Like 7 foot tall warrior women with massive claymores, and yeah, they're great. So Amandira Kendall is dispatched to aid the Death Guard in their upcoming campaign for unknown reasons. I will point out that the audiobook of this is read by Jonathan Keeble. And one thing I thought upon re-listening to the audiobook was, wow, there is some similarity with Hell's Reach, with Garrow's squad. Because Garrow, as battle captain of the 7th Company, there are 7 companies, he's the 7th captain. He does also have his own elite band of warriors that fight by his side, including Merrick Voyan, who's an apothecary, Tolan Sendek, the young Solon Decius, and they all have their own different personalities. You know, Solon's this kind of glory hungry. Oh, I'm raring to go. I want to get fighting. Whereas Tolan is very he's always reading like, here's what like there's the whole thing, the beginning of the book, they're saying, I wonder what the blood looked like when we kill the Jorgal. I wonder what color their blood is when they bleed. And they're like, I think it's green, I think it's red. And then Tolan's like, well, according to this battle report, the color of their blood is this. And then it's like, oh, no nonsense. Older Astarte.
He's an actually character.
Yeah, actually. And yeah, so the Death Guard are deployed to fight the Jorgal. And Garrow has a strange engagement where he's fighting one of these Xenos, and there's a psyker among them in kind of like a sack, like they reproduce through eggs, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And this psyker overwhelms Garrow. He's wielding his broadsword Libertas, which is this ancient sword which he always feels naked if he's not carrying, because at the beginning of the book it's like, oh, it's just been repaired by the artificers and I missed this sword, it's part of who I am. And he's trying to kill this thing, and it's a psyker, and it's going, I'm gonna mess with your brain, and oh well, you're going to go through a crisis, and blah, 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 and it does a cryptic prophecy. And then Amandira Kendall turns up and just cuts it in half. She's like, psykers, disgusting. And after this brief campaign against the Jorgal, Amandira, with a very junior ranking sister of the Sister of Silence, who hasn't yet taken her vows, has a conversation with Garrow and says, "Oh, did the psyker speak to you? Did the psyker say anything?" And he was like, "Oh, some cryptic bullshit. I wouldn't worry about it." And she was like, "Okay, fair enough. I'm going back to Luna because now we've done what we were supposed to do. We've got samples of the Xenos. We're going to take back to my superiors. We're going to analyze what they are, and then hopefully in the future we'll be able to combat them more effectively." And the Death Guard say, "Huzzah!" And another successful campaign for the 14th. However, uncharacteristically, Mortarion is about, and got to remember at this point the legions are vast. There's 100,000 to sometimes even 200,000 per legion, like the Ultramarines. It's like almost 250,000 Astartes, which is insane. Death Guard has pretty high numbers. Mortarion can't be with everyone in the legion all at once, so him arriving is a bit of a rare occurrence. And there's a big hustle and bustle on the ship or the fleet. Everyone's going, "Oh, Mortarion's right. Oh, really? Oh, the Primarch." Oh. And even Garrow is a bit giddy, like, "Oh my God, it's Dad. It's the Primarch." And following the battle, Garrow is honored with a ritual with a draft of poison, where after every successful campaign, Mortarion, as a way to grow bonds of camaraderie with his men, has a toast with one of his sons, usually the one who's got the most honor from the battle or the most prominent commander, and as a gesture of their constitution as a legion known for resisting toxins and surviving brutal conditions, they down a ceremonial cup of poisons. And it's always different, always gross, Mortarion is a Primarch, so for him it's just like drinking water. They say in the book, it's like, oh, unaffected. He's cheating. He's a Primarch. And Garrow is honored with drinking with his Primarch, and he downs the thing, and he's like, oh god, like, oh, my throat, dad.
It reminds me of in The Great Escape, the film, and they make their own homemade vodka, and they taste it, and they go like, whoa, and then no one's like, not that bad, like, whoa, like, it's that bad. It's that bad. And Garrow like almost faints, doesn't he? He's like, this is horrendous.
Yeah, and it's like there's this whole thing of Mortarion's like, all right, walk with me, I've got to chat with you. And even for minutes afterwards, he's just like a bit light on his feet, and even with Jonathan's performance, he's putting on a strained voice, because it's like you've just downed this stuff that's full of like scorpion venom and like some kind of like toxic mushroom pulped into a thick paste of just the most disgusting concoction you could imagine, just to prove how hard you are. Like, look at me, I'm well strong, I'm a death god, way poison. But it's all for a purpose, because at this point in time, it's worth mentioning that this is set just before the Istvan Free atrocity. Bits of chaos are stirring, rebellion is in the air, but it's very much concealed at this point. Horus and what's happened to him in his books before this has happened. So this is after Darwin. This is when the legions are starting to draw their allegiances and where they stand.
Funny enough, though, through most of the fishing for loyalties is happening through the warrior lodges, which
yes,
if you like Lodgecast, just we are here to corrupt you.
And the thing is, like, Merrick Voyan, the apothecary, is in one of is in the Death Guard version of the Warrior Lodge, and Garrow does not like them. He's like, hey, we shouldn't have these clandestine. I don't care about the whole like camaraderie aspect, but we shouldn't have these clandestine secret societies within the Legion. If my men have something to say to me, I want them to tell me personally, and then I can air their grievances or their feedback. I don't see the need to have these little pockets of scheming and plotting in the background. But he's like, hey, look, I'm not your mum. Like, if you want to be in the Warrior Lodge, Merrick, I'm not going to stop you, but be careful, because I don't think this is a good idea. And at this point, Mortarion is also, we're like, are you turning to chaos yet? Are you being a cheeky boy? And he specifically singles out Garrow because he's very much a holdover from the Death Guard's past. Even if you don't like him, like Grilgor does not like him, but he respects his ability as a commander and a fighter. The men of the Terran Guard, I guess we call them, they actually really adore Garrow because he's, they call him Straight Arrow Garrow. It's like he does things by the book. He's always honest. He's stoic and honorable, and you know where you stand with Garrow. And so to gauge where the Legion is, like Mortarion's about to make his great reveal that he's going to become a traitor. He singles out Garrow and goes, I'm going to honor him because he was in this fight. And I'm going to see if he's on my side or if he's on the Emperor's side. So he pulls him aside and he goes, okay, we've had our drink of poison. We're about to go meet up with the 63rd Expeditionary Fleet. We're going to meet up with the Sons of Horus, Emperor's Children, World Eaters, and the War Master himself. We're going to have a big conclave before the campaign because this planet called Istvan Free, typically there's a rebellion. Raven Guard took over the planet years ago, got compliance, and now they're an open rebellion. Ridiculous. So we're going to crush that. But before we do so, we're going to have this big conclave. All the Primarchs of the respective legions are going to be there. And I want you, Garrow, to be my equerry. And Garrow's like, oh, well, this is a great honor. I can't believe it. You're going to make me the equerry, but I'm just some guy. I say, no, you're a captain. You're well respected by the Legion. And it's about time I honored you for all the good work you've been doing. And of course, Grilgor hates this. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm Garrow. I'm too good to be a Death Guard. Look at me. I'm a Terran. Ugh. So Typhus kind of just kind of stirring trouble. He's just like, oh, have you heard he's been made the equerry? And he's like, what? How dare he? How dare Garrow be the most favored son of the day for Mortarion? He's not a real Death Guard. I grew up on Barbarous. Ugh. And so, but before they do get there, Garrow is shown a distress signal that was sent from Istvan. And it's kind of disturbing, even for Garrow, when he sees it. He hears all this weird stuff going on. He hears the screams of dying civilians and sees images of something called a war singer. And he's warned by Mortarion, like, oh, this is like going to be a pretty deadly foe. Even though we're going to have this, you're going to be my equerry, you're also going to be involved in the fighting to come. No problem. There's also a point where they do eventually get to the muster point for Istvan Free. And on the way to get to the meeting, there is a mention of the remembrances, and the Death Guard do not tolerate them. They're like, no, you're not. No, we are not having remembrances on our ship. They are useless. They're just, we do not need artists and poets in the ranks of the Death Guard because we have work to do. We are serious. We're a serious legion. When he goes to the actual conclave, he sees members of the Mournival and Garviel Loken. He's like, oh, I know Loken a little bit, but not very well, but I respect him. So they like exchange a nod. He notices there's some unease between the members of the Mournival. He's like, I don't really know who they are well, but even I can tell, like, oh, these two and these two are not communicating well, and there's some kind of tension. Did you want to quickly explain, like, a recap of the Mournival from the previous books?
There's a slight funny bit before they enter in the chamber, though. He does notice an old man stalking along the corridors. Garrow, he's like, that's really weird. He's moving bizarrely. That is we will say that is Cinderman, who, if you remember from Galaxy in Flames episode, the previous one, he has to find Keela because she's in danger. But so just a small recap of the characters we have seen throughout the series. Of course, Mr. Garviel Loken, who is our main POV for much of the opening trilogy. He is obviously straight and narrow, much like Garrow, good old rhyme there. Abaddon as well, Mr. First Captain Abaddon, the raging bulldog that he is, who's standing next to little Horus Aximand, who's the one who also looks like Horus, and Big Daddy Horus. And these two, obviously, the divide is very obvious, where next to Garviel is still Mr. Chuckles, Mr. Mustache himself, Tarek Torgadon, who from one of the previous episodes, the Lodge were like, you need to blame Loken for the deaths, from the Stampede deaths, and he was like, no, I choose Loken. I'm not going to be part of this. So there's post that, and there's a few other characters in the hall that are worth noting as well. But obviously the main these are obviously some of the characters that from previous episodes we've seen them, and this is Garrow's like first impression of seeing some of the other guys here. But he does know a few guys as well as some other friends and friendly, well, not so friendly faces, but there's another friendly face that we've discussed on another episode as well, isn't there, Andy?
Yeah. But I'll briefly mention the other people he spots. So he does see Angron and Khan, and he's like, oh, I've heard about Khan. He's a bit like, he compares him to Eidolon, who's also there, and he's like, oh, he's like the opposite of Eidolon. He doesn't preen and show off how cool he is. Fulgrim is absent. Eidolon is in his place, and he's like, oh, that's a bit weird, but we'll go into that in the next episode, I'm sure. But at the end of the briefing, where Horus explains, okay, there's a rebellion going on, we're going to deploy you here near the Coral City, we're going to deploy you there, and the Death Guard are going to take like a very prominent role, so they're quite happy to hear about that. And Garrow is tasked with helping the main push of the assault of the Coral City. And after they have drawn up their battle plans, etc., upon leaving, a helmeted Emperor's Children calls out to Gary. He's like, oh, you! And he's like, oh, who's this? And then he takes his helmet off, and it's our friend Saul Tarvitz from the previous books. And fun fact, Saul Tarvitz and Garrow are oath brothers, because they fought together in the past. They get on super well, so much so that when they shake hands, they clasp wrists like the old legions do. They carved half of an aquila onto each of their vambraces, so when they shake hands, it forms the entire aquila as a sign of their friendship, which is like a big deal, because very, very rare to have an oath brother. And as much as, like, for example, Garrow gets along with Loken, for example, because they fought in the past and they know each other a bit, like, Tarvitz is his boy. And the last time he saw him, he wasn't a captain. Now Saul Tarvitz is a captain. He's like, I'm going up in the world, And there's a nice little reunion. And after all this revelry, the battle company, the 7th Battle Company, are deployed to the Coral City, and during the fighting, it's pretty fierce. The Warsinger is basically a psyker, and so the main thrust of the attack is centered around, we need to kill the Warsinger, we need to kill the Warsinger. Garrow makes an attempt and is very badly wounded, resulting in him losing his leg and injuring his arm pretty badly, so that after the battle, he's going to have a prosthetic leg where it was. That's how bad it is. The Emperor's children managed to kill the Warsinger thanks to Eidolon and Tarvitz, mainly Eidolon shrieking his head off for somehow he has some kind of crazy sonic boom in his neck, which I'm sure we'll hear about in the future, bleeding out and suffering. An unlikely figure comes to his aid. Who might that be, Hal?
Well, it's perhaps the ugliest man in the room, as always. It is Mr. Fabius Bile. We should say as well, like, Garrow doesn't see the Warsinger die. They just like hear screaming, and then like, oh, it is dead. And Fabius Bile, who we've only mentioned a little bit of, I think, previously in some episodes, but he'll have a more prominent role later on as well. But obviously, Apothecary of the Emperor's Children. Again, we'll explain a lot more about him. But essentially, not a good guy at all. Very much a twisted scientist figure who manages to stabilize Garrow, which is pretty much in the grander scheme is a very unlikely savior for Garrow. But because Garrow is like desperately like, I can still fight, and it's like, no, you can't. Like, they're like the Death Guard, who are his brothers, like, are worried like he's going to bleed out. But surprisingly, he does, and it's a not very popular move, but another Legion saves, the enduring Death Guard warrior, and he's luckily somehow still alive.
And Merrick Voyan, his squad apothecary, is very upset when he's like, "Oh, Fabius, Fabius treated your wounds. Oh, that guy." He's like, "That's my job."
It's still some guilt, isn't it? Because Merrick's the one who's in the warrior lodges, isn't he? And so there's been a bit of like, some of the other guys in Garrow's squad have been distrusting Merrick since they found out about it, because it's kind of like, oh, you're doing that thing which our captain and doesn't approve of. So you're kind of like, are you with us? You know what I mean? Like, Garrow,
he's being a bit ostracized, and then now he's also failed in his duty to like treat his wounds, and he's let a legionary of a different legion treat the wounds of the battle captain. Oh, that's a faux pas. Like, surely you should have been there to treat his wounds. But thankfully, thanks Spider, Garrow survives the ordeal, and as much as he wants to get stuck in and get back in the fight, no, like, they're like, Garrow, you've lost a leg. You've got this new robotic replacement. You've taken all these wounds. Your chest was damaged. You are not going back into the front lines. You are on rest duty. We are not allowing you to take part in any more campaigning on Istvan Free. And there is an ulterior motive. So instead, Garrow is stationed aboard the Imperial frigate, the EISENSTEIN, under the watchful eye of Ignatius Grulgor. But that's pretty strange, you might ask. Like, hold on, the second captain's not wounded. Second commander, isn't wounded, and he hates Garrow. Why is Grulgor like on this ship? That's a bit strange. So Garrow kind of notices this as well, and he's like, "Oh, well, I can't really do anything." And there's just like an air of unease, like his gut instinct kicks in, and he's like, "Well, I can't really do anything. I can't go anywhere." But something feels wrong. Caleb, trusty Caleb, do you reckon you could do me a favor and like keep an eye out for anything suspicious? Because I don't know, I don't trust Grulgor. He hates me. Why is he here? Why am I stuck on the frigate? There's something off. And Caleb, has access to parts of the ship that other servers and like, there's a bit right at the beginning of the book where he's like very proud of the fact that he's like the only mortal man, or one of the only mortal men allowed to go through like Astartes only areas, because he's a housecarl, and like he gets picked on by Grulgor and stuff. Oh, what's this? I say, well, this, brother, is what happens when you fail as a Death Guard. Isn't it disgusting? And he's like, oh, where did you fail? Oh, I failed in the poisoned forest. Like, yeah, well, oh, it's a good thing your little heroic captain saved your worthless life, you piece of scum. You're like, oh, just leave him alone. He's doing his job and he's doing it well, and he's proud. And like Caleb is really proud to be like part of the Death Guard, because even if he's not an Astartes, he's like, I do my job, I do it well. I'm there for my battle captain. I'm as much a part of the Legion as anyone else, because without me, there's a little bit less effectiveness in how we operate. I love being a housecarl. I love being a part of the Death Guard, even if I'm not a full-fledged Space Marine.
We should also mention, when Garrow was in his near deathless state, there was someone above him praying for him, which I don't know if we should reveal it yet, but there's a little bit of like Garrow could feel his soul being like ebbing away and being eaten by something, and something saved him, and or feels like it saved him, and he heard a voice, and that's worth mentioning now before the reveal happens.
Well, yeah, and there's like not Merrick. Caleb's a bit of a funny guy. Like, people are like, oh, what's that? What's that around your neck? Oh, nothing. Got his Death Guard service robes on. He's got some kind of book stashed away, but we don't talk about that in open society, because it's a bit taboo. But either way, at this point in time, Caleb is like, okay, well, I have access to parts of the ship other people don't have. People don't give me notice often because I'm below the self-righteous gaze of most of the Astartes in the Legion. I'm going to have a little look around, and to his surprise, he sees members of crew getting ready to arm warheads full of virus bombs. And Caleb's like, what? Why? Like, our men are still on the surface, so that doesn't make any sense. Virus bombs are exterminatus class weapons. You deploy these things when you want to kill everything on the planet. Oh, this is bad. And he starts to like try and get back, and luckily he bumps into Merrick, and Merrick helps him get back safely to Garrow. And then to compound this, our good old friend from the past, Saul Tarvitz, he's been up to some stuff on the surface of Istvan 3, but all Garrow is aware of is he receives a report from the Andronicus or Andronius, one of the flagships of the Emperor's Children, commanded by Lord Commander Eidolon, saying, hey, Garrow, we have a renegade Thunderhawk that's left our ship. You need to gun it down, because we've got a deserter. Fortunately, Saul Tarvitz, who is piloting this Thunderhawk, opens a communication with Garrow, and he's being chased by Raptor craft, which are basically interceptor craft that are going to destroy the Thunderhawk. Time is of the essence. Something is absolutely wrong. Hal, what warning is Saul bringing to Garrow?
Well, as we've seen from the Galaxy in Flames, again, if people haven't seen that episode, do go check it out. But Saul Tarvitz has obviously been doing his little investigation, because he thought something was up since Eidolon's, sonic yell on the
sonic
voice
boom.
3 booms for the voice singer, please. But Saul had that meeting where he saw Apothecary Fabius Bile talked to him in Eidolon about the genetic altering of the Legion, and then Saul gets more suspicious, and then that's when he asked Rylanor, Ancient of Rights, to take his place. Very weird for a Emperor's Children to give up his honor to go first onto the battlefield. And he found virus bombs on all the Emperor's Children ships. So Saul was obviously realizing that only one person could authorize something like that, and that was Horus. And he is running down to Istvan 3 to warn everyone he can, essentially. And then obviously at this point, he gets in range of a ship called the EISENSTEIN. So what happens next, Andy?
Well, I've got a little excerpt where he says, this is basically, Garrow goes, what's going on? And he says, Garrow, this is treachery. All of this, we are betrayed. The fleet is going to bombard the planet's surface with virus bombs. And Garrow goes, huh? And Merrick and Caleb are like, yeah, there are virus bombs on this ship. They are ready to fire them. And obviously Garrow has been contacted by Eidolon saying, gun down this ship. So he tells the crew, hey, get ready to fire the las cannons. he takes it upon himself to actually take control of the guns of the Eisenstein, and he manages to fire the las cannons to destroy the raptors pursuing Saul's ship, and use the explosions to kind of cover his escape so he can go deploy to the planet to warn the people on the surface. And he basically just is like, oh, inform the Andronius that rogue vessel is destroyed, but also the raptors were caught in the crossfire. Sorry. And it's this point where the crew is in disbelief. The crew does not want to believe that, oh my god, wait, we're gonna shoot our own men on the surface. That doesn't make sense. Wait, why is the War Master allowing exterminatus weapons? Because only the War Master has access to these kind of weapons because they're that powerful. The only person other than Horus that can like allow these weapons to be used is the Emperor. Oh, this doesn't make any sense. However, Ignatius Grulgor enters the fray, and Garrow demands answers and says, Grulgor, why are you really here? What is this about? Why are there virus bombs getting ready to be fired? And Grulgor basically just says, hey, we're doing a coup. Mortarion is our Primarch. We are loyal to the Primarch before the Emperor. You're not a true barber and you wouldn't understand. You're not like, you weren't there, man. You didn't grow up on this terrible planet. But I'm like a real Death Guard, and the real Death Guard stands with Mortarion, not the Emperor. And Garrow, is like, no, we do not betray our brothers. We do not betray the Imperium. We do not betray the Emperor. And so a fight ensues. And during the fighting, you've obviously got Grulgor's men and Garrow's men. The crew are in disarray. But also in the vicinity are virus bombs. And that's a really dangerous thing to have lying around when there's a firefight going on. During the battle, Caleb gets involved. He gets a snub pistol, which is like a stub pistol, which isn't like a good weapon against a space marine. You know, there's a point where Grulgor has a line of sight to shoot and kill Garrow. Caleb fires the stubber at Grulgor, throws his aim off. Grulgor throws a knife at Caleb. And like a space marine knife is like a sword, right? If you were to hold a space marine like knife, it's huge because space marines are huge. Caleb takes it like a champ, realizes, oh no, Grulgor's shot has now ricocheted off and breached one of the virus bombs. It's leaking gas into the Eisenstein. Everyone is going to die. So he manages to like clamber into a sealed compartment with the virus bombs where Grulgor and his men are, setting up a firing position. They don't care. They don't notice this weak little man in their midst. They're like, he's going to die anyway. He's got a big sword sticking out of his stomach. But then Caleb seals away the compartment, locking himself and Grulgor's men into the compartment. They are all torn apart by the Life Eater virus because this thing is extremely deadly. Like this stuff, even if you're in Space Marine armor with its breathing filters, you get a breath of it, your lungs start deteriorating. Like from a cellular level, this stuff breaks you apart, eats you, and the only way to like stop it is when it runs out of food, it just kind of dissipates. That's why it's so deadly. And so Caleb Aaron, the unassuming housecarl that was mocked and bullied by Grulgor for years, gets a bit of revenge almost, but not quite revenge because it's all in service to save Nathaniel Garrow. He manages to kill Grulgor and save the life of his master Nathaniel Garrow as he perishes as part of the Life Eater virus bomb, which is like a really nice moment of, we had this character who was very unassuming and he saves the day in the end. And some people, I did a video on him like way back, and a lot of people like, he was the first, he should be like considered the first Imperial saint because he was the one who sacrificed himself when he was needed the most, and he was just a mortal man. Like, L in the chat for Caleb. And
I mean, he goes out with a proper bang, man. He even, I think his last words are like, "You have a purpose, Garrow."
You are of purpose. Yeah. He gives him a pep talk before he perishes. And with that, the members of the Eisenstein, now known as the 70, because there's 70 Death Guard Astartes still loyal to the Emperor, them and the crew begin to attempt to escape Istvan free. While they are doing so, refugees from the Vengeful Spirit hail the Eisenstein saying, "Hey, I'm Iacton Cruz. I'm the half-herd. I'm a captain of the Lunar Wolves / Sons of Horus. I have civilians on this craft. We know about the betrayal. Please let us on board." And they do. And in the crew are Kirill Sinderman, the Iterator, Mercedes Olaton, and Euphrates Keeler. And then the Eisenstein goes, right, we got to get the hell out of here because there's no way our little shuttle, which isn't like, it's not even a war vessel, it's a frigate. Like, we're not going to survive against like an entire fleet of 4 legions. We've got to get the hell out of here and warn the Emperor. However, they are pursued by a menacing foe. Hal, who's on their heels? Who's hot on their heels?
Well, the thing is at this point, Grugor has like slightly been talking to Mr. Typhon, first captain of the Legion. And obviously it was to basically, even though Mortarion kind of wanted Garrow to basically join him because he wanted, a Terran man joining him was, Garrow wouldn't turn, and Typhon knew it. So he placed Grugor on that ship, and he was like, he's getting suspicious. Like, I haven't heard from, he's like, Grugor's a real boastful bastard, and I haven't heard from him in a while, which is really unique.
The ship's turning around.
Like, it was like, because shout out to the crew though of the Eisenstein, because the captain was like, all right, let's lock in, and they're just humans. They do a good showing, but they're drifting, and it's like, it's not out of range, but they are like on the edge of the formation where they're not going
to be able to bombard the planet from their positions. Like, that's not right. They're not going to be able to deploy the virus bombs from there.
Yeah, it gets a bit suspicious. Then, to be fair, a signal comes through because one of the members of the crew, unfortunately, betrays them and signals. He's thinking, I'll get a promotion if I do the signal. He sends a signal secretly to the Terminus Est, which is Typhon's ship. And then the ship is obviously cumbersome and slow, but powerful, and it starts heating up. And then Garrow and the rest of the crew are like, with Yaton Cruz now next to him, are like, damn it. And then Garrow catches the eyes of the one guy, and they just know. And then he just goes up and snaps his neck, and they're like, run, go to the warp. They can't get to the warp because they're too close to the planet, but they've got to absolutely dash out to try and get some space.
And so the chase begins. This tiny little vessel versus the second most powerful flagship of the Death Guard Legion with so many guns. It has so many guns. And so the Eisenstein is completely battered on its way out of Istvan 3. They do eventually manage to exit through the warp. However, they don't know really what the warp is capable of. Like, at this point in time, chaos is unknown to the Imperium. No one knows the true danger lurking in the tides of the Immaterium. And boy, do we get a showing of it in this next bit, wherein Nurgle, the god of plague and disease, the secret benefactor of the Death Guard Legion, even up to now, because even at this point, remember, 7 great companies. And what does Garrow's own squad say before they deploy to the Jorgul Depression? Count the 7. Nurgle's had his fingers in this pie for a while. And as such, as they are traversing through the Immaterium, Grulgor and his men, even though they've just been demolished by the virus bomb, they get up again and they become the first Plague Marines. And they are disgusting to behold. The skin is sloughing off their bones. Other mortal crew members are rising as zombies who are also caught in there. Though, fun fact, Caleb Aaron's body, no soul in it. Some people are like, oh, his soul was spirited to the Emperor. There was just a husk left behind. But like, even though his body is reanimated, it's like, oh, that's not Caleb. That's just like what's left of him. His soul is somewhere else, hopefully in a better place. But now the Plague Marines return. They are extremely good at surviving the most deadly of wounds. So the 70 go, what the hell is that? And then another fight ensues. They start shooting bolters into them. These Plague Marines do not care. Bits of them are blowing up. Bits of them are falling off. They're not going down. Oh no, this is a really bad thing. We don't know how to deal with these guys. And bear in mind, there's no psychers on board. Librarians, because of the Council of Nicaea, has been banned, although the Death Guard don't take psychers anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered. They are struggling. Solon Decius, the glory hound of Garrow's squad, is injured by a plague knife. Garrow goes, right, we need to, this is too dangerous. We need to get out of the warp. So they do. They exit the warp. As soon as they exit the warp, Grilgor and his men collapse because their tether to the Immaterium is cut. They're no longer to be reanimated because the power of chaos is not that strong yet to just be able to form at will. So once outside the domain of chaos, okay, crisis averted. The Plague Marines are dead. They're not getting up. Cool. However, we can't go back into the warp. We're going to get demolished if we go back into the warp. Also, the ship was already in a bad state because of the barrage we took from the Terminus Est. Now we've lost crew. Men of the 70, including Solus, are very badly wounded. Shit. We're in a bad spot. So Garrow devises a plan, which again, Merrick Voyan, the entire book, disagrees with. Garrow goes, okay, this is going to leave us stranded, but how about we jettison our warp drive out into space, blow it up, and then the resulting explosion will act as a beacon for someone nearby to find us. And Voyan's like, wait, hold on. We're in uncharted space. We don't know anyone that's around. We have no evidence that anyone can hear us. We don't even know if this is work. Why do you think this is going to happen? And then Garrow starts going through his Born Again arc. He's like, I have faith. I have faith we will be found.
It's because he keeps whenever he has a conversation with Euphrates Keeler, all the Astartes get a sense of something is strangely powerful about this normal human being. And Garrow's throughout the book has been hearing little bits about having faith in something or having some kind of, and then he's still, when he was in that near death state, some great power thing saved him in some sense. So he feels like there's something out there which is beyond his understanding of the quote unquote imperial truth, which is looking more and more fractious as the book goes on.
And to be fair to Garrow, he's also just seen Euphrates Keeler banish a demon when they were in the warp, holding up a pendant of the Aquila. She's just like, I've got this silver pendant. She holds it up, and there's an abomination that the Death Guard can't kill with their bolters and blades. She holds this up, and it just banished from the warp. And he sees that and he goes, I think there's something up with this faith stuff. And while they're stranded, Garrow goes through Caleb Aaron's belongings, which isn't much. He's basically just above a servitor in terms of regard by the Legion and possessions. But Garrow let him have things for himself in his own little space. And while he's going through his possessions, and he finds again a silver pendant of the Aquila, which Caleb wore a lot. He also finds a book stashed away, and during this era of the Horus Heresy, there's this thing that's spreading, and there are these little pamphlets going around doing the rounds. What is this book, Hal? What is it?
Yes, well, we've already had a small explanation through previous episodes about what is the Levitio Divinitatis. I think in our first episode I did with Mr. Pancras No Work, it was briefly explained that this was Mr. originally Lorgar Aurelian, who's now Prime Chaos Boy, his initial works during the Great Crusade. And it essentially is the Bible for worshipping the Emperor of Mankind as a god. And Caleb, he definitely, as we see now, Garrow also realizes Caleb was the one praying over him, and it was kind of maybe the Emperor's divine light that Caleb was able to channel. That's why Caleb was so much willing to sacrifice his own life, because he was Caleb was the Emperor saved Garrow, so therefore he must have purpose. And essentially this is again pretty much Keeler is the embodiment of it. Cinnamon and Ollerton, obviously they're kind of sidekicks for that, mostly Cinnamon. But it's been spreading throughout much of the mortal humans, but this is kind of the first instant where it's, other than being a word bearer thing, it's the first instant where some other Astartes is essentially interested or slash is starting to grasp the concept of maybe the Emperor is more than just what he seems. Which also briefly explained that. At the same time, this is happening, the Isfahan massacre is happening. The Death Guard, who we've seen previously, they are and then we see from their perspective this time, they are betrayed. There is a very touching scene, Andy. I don't know if you wanted to explain it because you got some artwork for it, but it's when they're trying to get their men into the bunkers, and there's two souls that we have to discuss, don't we, Andy? Do you want to explain that?
So that's I believe is that it's
Temeter
and Foul.
Foul, yeah.
Huron Foul, yes. So at the same time, the virus bombs are being deployed on Istvan Free. Loyalist World Eaters, Death Guard, Emperor's Children, and Sons of Horus are dying in droves. And these two particular souls, one a venerable dreadnought of the Legion, one a captain, are struggling to get men into these pre-made bunkers so that they can survive the virus bomb. And long story short, they're trapped outside. Huron Foul, in his dreadnought armor, is holding his brother in his enormous hands, who's exposed to the virus bomb, hasn't got a helmet. He's feeling like the flesh peel off his face. And even with his Astartes physiology, he hasn't got much time. And as a last act of defiance, he utters, "We'll go together then, shall we?" Activates a failsafe in his massive suit of dreadnought armor, which creates an explosion and takes a bunch of traitors with them. And from space, you can see the explosion, even if it's only a small little sign of defiance, as the world is first coated in this deadly poison, then bombarded once again so that the poison is set fire and set ablaze to Istvan, whilst those few who survive are in the bunkers waiting for their time to seek vengeance against those who betrayed them.
Yeah,
and it's a very touching moment.
One last FU to Horus, but yes. To be fair though, Garrow and their crew, they'll never know what happened to those their friends, unfortunately. But yeah, so Garrow's finished. He's now been reading this Levisio Divinitatis as they've detonated these warp drives in an act of faith, one would say, that someone will find them.
And you'll hear this a lot. So fortunately, as luck would have it, Garrow's leap of faith with detonating the ship's warp drive, which was their only means of transportation, succeeds. Because, funnily enough, the Imperial Fist's flagship, the Phalanx, an enormous mobile fortress, has meanwhile also been trapped in this uncharted region of space because warp storms have been preventing them from getting back to the throne world. However, as they were lost in space, they saw this quick beacon of light from the detonation of the warp drive. The astropaths then went, we have a reference point. We can get out of the storm. Let's investigate what this was. And thankfully, the EISENSTEIN is saved by the Imperial Fists while they are waylaid by warp storms. So the Imperial Fists obviously take in this band of civilians, but they are very miffed. They're like, hold on, what are these 70 Death Guard doing away from their legion? Why aren't they at Istvan getting rid of that rebellion? Also, why is there like one guy from the Sons of Horus here and a bunch of remembrances? And what are the crew talking about? This is very strange. Okay, let's bring them to the Primarch because he's also there. Let's bring them to Rogel Dawn. What happens next is an interesting exchange, shall we say. Meets with Garrow and says, "Wow, that was an interesting way of telling us where you were and letting us find you. Why did you think that someone out here would see this beacon that you created?" To which Garrow says, "I have faith." And like Rogel Dawn does like a very heavy like frown at the word faith. He's like
a big
But thankfully, the shockwave did allow them to find the EISENSTEIN. And then Garrow's like, okay, I have something really important to tell the Emperor. So, well, if it's something important for the Emperor, you can tell me. Garrow then takes his own life into his hands by telling Rogel Dawn, who is a really big fan of Horus. During Horus's promotion to War Master, he was one of the few Primarchs who was not resentful for the fact that he got the promotion, and even advised Horus in the early days of like how he could best facilitate the role. He's like number one fan of Horus Lupercal. Is like, I'm going to be supportive of my brother because my brother is a good man and he will be an amazing War Master. having some random Astartes you don't know turn up on your ship out of nowhere and then tell you, hey, by the way, your brother Horus has betrayed the Imperium. He's killed a bunch of my brothers. He's killed a bunch of his own legionaries, and he slaughtered a bunch of remembrances, is not what you want to hear. To the point where as soon as Garrow mentions like the first account of Horus's betrayal, Dawn darts across the room and just like punches him in the jaw, hard enough to hurl him across the room. However, as I think it's the Acton Cruz remarks, if he really intended to kill you, he wouldn't have pulled his punch, because he could have just like decapitated him. He's a Primarch. But there's a part of Dawn that, as much as he is railing against this idea that like, oh, Horus has betrayed me, there's a bit of him that's resisting. And like, do you want to like go more into the reaction of Dawn and how he's taking each drip feed of information?
I mean, it's the thing is, Dawn is not really known for having a temper necessarily. That's later on, but it's more like he's like the stoic. We've seen a little bit of him in Horus Rising, where Garviel had spoken to Dawn, because Dawn recommended that Garviel be promoted to what they call the Mournival. But so he's like, the only thing we've seen of him so far has been like, I think it describes him as like a cool and whispery voice, being like, "Yeah, man, yeah, man, you should be in there. You should definitely be in the crew, yeah, man." And then each word, each time like Garrow tries to tell the story, it basically like his face turns into what will be like a permanent face of hatred throughout the rest of the heresy. And he initially is just like, Garrow is lying. There's no way Horus would do that. But there's unfortunately he'll see stuff that is undeniable. If you want to explain that part.
Yeah. Well, at first it's a case of like he explains what happens, and then Sigismund is also there, and Sigismund's like, "Oh, you remember Garviel Loken? Well, this other guy, Acton Cruz, who's also here, he's a friend of his. I can attest that Garviel Loken, as you know, is a good man. This guy knows him. I don't believe this, but I also can't pass the fact that, you know, even Dawn is like, Garrow, you seem like a principled man, but I'm really getting annoyed every time you say faith. Like, he just like, faith. And he's like, that, he just goes, that word again. And from his perspective, he's like, hold on, your account is, you're telling me that the person I think is the greatest person ever betrayed the Imperium. Also, there are all these impossible things you mentioned, and talk about like revived dead bodies and sorcery. And it's like, this is all ridiculous. I'm going to, like, he pulls out Storm's teeth, his massive chainsword, and is about to just cut Garrow in half after Garrow has the balls to say, "Are you blind?" to Dawn's face, to which Dawn is like, "What did you say?" And it's like,
yeah,
well,
pretty bold. All the other captains of the Imperial Forces are just standing around being like, "Oh my god, he's gonna
jaws
die."
drop. Yeah. Because he's like, obviously you love your brother so much that you're blinded to the truth. And like Dawn is about to just decapitate Garrow with Storm's teeth, until Euphrates Keeler strides in, completely fearless, and confronts Dawn. And she's like, "Hey, not a single bit of fear, just compassion." And she basically just says to Dawn, like, "Look, you are a logical man. You would have killed Garrow minutes ago if you really didn't have a shred of doubt in you. Mercedes, you have these internal, augmetics which allow you to record things. Can you show the Primarch what you've seen?" And so Mercedes connects to a hololith and shows a projection of Horus ordering the slaughter of the remembrances on the Vengeful Spirit. There's footage of them escaping the vessel. There's footage of them on the EISENSTEIN, witnessing, the virus bombs being, loaded. There's evidence of, the Plague Marines. And so Dawn is just, every fiber of his being does not want to believe Garrow and his band of renegades, but he relents. And other captains, I need some time alone, and he seals himself off in his chamber. And even Keeler remarks, I feel so sad for Dawn, because you've broken his heart today. You've broken his heart because he loves Horus, and now he has to wrestle with the fact that the person he loves so much has betrayed everything he ever stood for. And I feel so sorry for Dawn. However, the Imperial Fists managed to venture back to the throne world, bringing the 70 with them. However, they're not going to let them just land on the throne world. They're like, hold on, there's already treachery enough going on. We're not going to just plonk you on the throne world where you can cause mayhem. We're gonna basically garrison you on the moon of Luna with the Somnus Citadel, which is the base of operations of the Sisters of Silence, which is also a good thing because there's been accounts of all these weird phenomena with psychers. We'll put you in like the heart of where that kind of stuff doesn't work, just to be safe. However, Solon Decius, who I mentioned earlier, he is not in a good place. His body is putrefying in real time as the infection spread by the plague knife of the plague marines is spreading rot within his body. And it's very sad with Solon because, you know, he wanted to be a proper Death Guard and do good by his battle captain. But as the whispers of Nurgle's pawns, you know, are starting to manifest in his ears, a being, an entity offers him a release from pain, and Solon surrenders his soul and says, please take the pain away. Please take the pain away. And then his body transforms into a greater demon known as the Lord of Flies. And all hell breaks loose as the Lord of Flies escapes containment, killing several members of the surviving 70 and also Sisters of Silence in its rampage. Up until the point where Garrow and Merrick, they realize, oh, Solon's missing. What the hell's going on? Garrow suits up. He gets Libertas. He's going, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And with the aid of Amandera Kendall, who is also there, they manage to track the Lord of Flies. And one of the cooler moments of the Horus Heresy, Garrow basically duels the Lord of Flies inside the Somnus Citadel until they are kind of launched out onto the surface of Luna, where on the dusty surface of Luna, in the vacuum of space, they have a fist fight. And as he's brawling, the Lord of Flies gets the upper hand. But at the moments where he could have died, Garrow hears Keeler say to him, you are of purpose, mimicking the last words of Caleb Aaron. Garrow gets a second wind, restored by faith, grabs a moon rock and just bludgeons
smacks his face.
Flies, like, smashing his teeth out of his jaw. And then with the pendant of Caleb Aaron wrapped around Libertas, cuts the head off of the Lord of Flies, banishing it back once again into the warp. And then as he is taken back to his confinement within the Somnus Citadel, Garrow starts reciting lines of the Lectitio Divinitatis as he meditates, practicing his faith. And with the villain of the week slain, time passes. I think it's a few weeks pass until a representative of the Emperor arrives on Luna. And who might this mysterious figure be?
Well, it's a character we've mentioned throughout a couple of these episodes, but just to actually get into who he is, this is Malcador the Sigillite, who is a perpetual like the Emperor, though not nearly as powerful. He is the Emperor, essentially right-hand man. He is like his spy master, his regent, and he's often depicted as an old man, although he's not weak like an old man. He's also probably one of the most powerful human psychers to have ever lived. But he's very much like he is the shadow to the Emperor's light, essentially. But he's not like the Emperor, like he's not a superhuman figure in person. He often appears as like a old man with like a staff with a burning fire on it or something like that. And he's basically in charge of everything as well as the Emperor.
Yeah.
But he is the behind the scenes guy. And he is very much here to, well, begin something anew, because now that they've digested the truth of the fact that Horus has betrayed the Imperium and Garrow's signal has been taken up by Dawn to the Emperor. So, Malcador's here to let him know what happens next.
So Malkador, he assembles a few specific people. So I believe it's Amon Toramakian, who's one of the custodians. He's his bodyguard. So they arrive on the Somnus Citadel, and Malkador summons Garrow, Iacton Cruz, and Amandira Kendall. After reviewing Garrow's testimony and Mercedes Olaton's evidence and Dawn's account, Malkador says, "Don't worry, it's in hand. The Emperor is busy right now, Webway project, but he has been informed of the betrayal. Dawn is currently drawing up battle plans to bring vengeance against the traitors and put this rebellion down. But this isn't good enough for Garrow. Garrow goes, I'm not just going to sit here while this is going on. I'm basically exiled from my legion. I can't go back to Mortarion. I can't go Death Guard. I need something to do. I'm not just going to be sitting in this cell, rotting away while I could be doing something useful." And so Malkador says, well, on that note, actually, I am starting a new initiative. I am gathering men and women of an inquisitive nature. You, Garrow, are going to be my Agentia Primus. Iacton Cruz, you're going to be my Agentia Secundus, and Kendall, you're going to be my Agentia Tertius. 3 unique individuals who are going to do my bidding behind the scenes. And this is basically the fledgling Inquisition. Each is given a sigil of Malkador, so whenever they need to get anything done henceforth, they just kind of show off the symbol of the Regent of Terror, and they can kind of get away with anything. Amandira, for example, she henceforth is no longer beholden to the vow of silence she took. So she's like the only sister of silence, can freely speak and utter words, which is like, oh, that's like a fun thing where she's like, now I'm beholden to Malkador. I need to be able to do my job effectively, and so therefore my forgive the pun, but now my vow is null and void. Oh
God!
For Null Maiden. So now Garrow is a free agent of the Imperium. But the book ends with before he becomes a knight errant, as we will know him, he briefly meets up with Solon Decius, the apothecary, and Solon tells him. Not Solon Decius. Yep. Merrick Voyan. Sorry, Solon Decius died. Merrick Voyan. And Merrick says to Garrow, look, I've had enough of fighting. I've had enough of treachery. I am no longer going to fight as an Astartes. I'm going to dedicate what life I have left to finding a cure for the Death Guard's afflictions. He doesn't realize that, you can't really fix chaos. He sees an affliction and goes, oh, well, this is a disease. Diseases have cures. I'm going to find it. But at the time, Garrow says, okay, well, I wish you well, Merrick. I hope you succeed. I will see you in the future, hopefully. And the book ends.
They were butting heads throughout the entire book. Even when they did like the warp drive destination, he almost shot Garrow in the head as well. Yeah. So
and Merrick also apologizes for being a part of the warrior lodges. He sees the folly of his ways, and he's like, I'm not going to be a part of any of that anymore. I'm going to just dedicate myself to something that I can fix.
No more killing, only saving.
And the book ends with Keeler and Garrow having a chat, sharing their bond of faith, and it actually ends with the two of them praying together to the Emperor. So at this point, Garrow is now pretty much a full convert to the Lictitio Divinitatis, something he's going to get flack for many books, but even on one of the covers of one of his books, there's a picture of him still clutching the Lictitio Divinitatis inherited from Caleb Aaron, which he still carries with him. And that's the end of Flight of the EISENSTEIN, where we have the first Astartes of Faith. We have lots of characters. We have lots of factions involved. And I think it's a really rich book of world building, of storytelling, and it doesn't really have dull moments either. There's bits of like, one thing I like about this book is Mortarion. You get to see a bit of his wit. You see a bit of Mortarion's caring side, even though he's preparing for this betrayal. You can see how he's aware of the jealousies of Grilgor and other captains, and how he's still trying to preserve good men in his ranks. You see, this volatile rage of Dawn. You see some of the more clandestine elements of the story creeping in with Malkador's introduction and Amandira Kendall. there's so much going on in this book, and it's one of my favorites for that reason.
I think I particularly, it's one of the good things about this book is like the star character Garrow is a very, very interesting character in terms of it's not like he has like his whole conversion over the book is not like, there's no part of it that feels rushed. It's just generally like, I would like, if I was in his position, I'd see exactly how I would end up like him. And in a way, like, it's one of those things like it works. It generally, like, you see it work, and it's again, like the combat scenes are great in this one. The warp stuff is always disgusting, and there's a lot of good shenanigans throughout the book. Again, the dialogue is pretty good as well between like different characters as well. I do like the fact of Garrow and Merrick's like back and forth throughout the book, even though Merrick's meant to be his junior, but eventually, each character kind of had like an arc, which was quite good. And then I feel so bad for the scenes on Isfahan. It's gutting because again, with like Temeter and Foul, they basically got everyone else in the tunnels, and they said like they should have gone in earlier, and then Huron Foul lied. Like he was like, I'm a dreadnought and I'll be fine outside, and then Temeter's like, you lied,
like, oh, your armor's breached.
And he was like, it's okay. We'll die together, brother. So there's lots of like, it has the good amount of like tragedy, victory, and then like it doesn't feel like the loyalists are winning, but in a sense of like it feels like they fought back or they're preparing to fight back, which
they're resisting.
Great book. Actually, one of the I say top 10 in Horus Heresy. Definitely top 10. Not sure where I put it yet. We have to read much more into the series for people, but I will say though, again, thank you so much, Andy, Mr. Core character now of the Lodge cast. Everyone made it this far. Please do like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We got episodes coming out every once in a while. We're going to get through the entire series again. If you don't plan on reading it, we'll read it for you, and we'll give you all the good bits. I think next time will be Fulgrim, which is the 5th book in the series. We'll do a switch back and forth between who's helming, but we'll hopefully see you guys all on the next one. Peace and love.
Bye.
Bye.